Hey everybody, welcome back to Project Unoya. I have my really good friend here with me today, Drayton Gilbert. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
So today we actually want to talk about careers and why it's so important to us in our modern day, because I feel like with our age especially, it's super important to talk about. There's not a lot of us really trying to pursue a lot of the things that we want to do, maybe because we're too afraid, too anxious about starting new things or journeys that we can prepare ourselves for. So I felt like it was really awesome to have Dre here with me today because I've seen his journey and his experiences through social media, and seeing what he's done on a daily basis is awesome. So I really wanted to bring him on. So it'll be
Well,
fun.
thank you. Appreciate that, Naz. That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely am really excited to come onto the podcast here because careers play a huge effect, especially in our day and age, knowing how all of our intricate stories are individual, but then how they can kind of intertwine and they guide us to where we want to go in the future. So definitely super excited about today's topic.
All right. So we're going to talk about a little bit about what Drake does. And then we'll kind of go over about a little bit more stuff and a little more detail. We're just going to have a conversation about careers and why it's so important to us. So, Dre, I'll let you take that on. I'll get you to introduce yourself, talk about what you do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you for the sweet introduction, Inez. That's so awesome. So my name is Dre, for those I haven't met. Full name is Drayton. Dre works totally fine. I'm a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer. Prior to working in the fitness realm, which I've been in about 4 to 5 years now, I worked in upper retail management at a corporate level and also at a store level, primarily within the luxury goods market, working with a lot of luxury cosmetic brands and doing a lot of really great learning and development events through those companies as well. So I have a background in sales, retail management, and client management, staff retention and training management, and more recently, making people sweat.
That's awesome. You did so much. And I've seen like throughout the years, I've only was able to see you through social media because we don't really live in the same province. You're in Montreal right now, and I'm in Alberta. So a lot of time you did move from BC and you moved certain places. So I didn't really get to see much of that in person, but it's really nice to see your journey online and see how far you've come, because it's like such an inspiration, especially to me personally. I've honestly done like sales and stuff for years and years, and I've never really known what I wanted to do because when we graduated from school, that was one thing that personally I wasn't really prepared for because I didn't really know what I wanted to do after we graduated. And that's usually something they kind of try to prepare you, be like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always said I wanted to be a ballerina and I wanted to, right? Nothing bad about that, but nothing about an actual career that's going to really make you money and give you that financial freedom, I guess. Because I don't know about you, Dre, but for me, I was just moving job and workplaces literally less than a year. So I would barely last a year because I would get so bored of where I was every time I would work somewhere. And I just wanted to try new things and see what I liked. But it was just so difficult for me to realize what kind of opportunities there are in the world, because not a lot of people realize that there's so many opportunities that we can really hold on to and work on, because there's so many jobs out there that we don't know about, right? So I don't know if what you
Absolutely.
found working out, you probably didn't even know you wanted to do that.
Honestly, yeah, no, my story is extremely similar to yours. Of course, we've known each other since literally junior high. For those who are not from Alberta, fun fact, junior high is not a thing anywhere else in Canada. Did you know that?
Oh, what? No
It's
way.
not. There's no junior high in BC. There's no junior high in Quebec. They go straight from elementary to high school, and it's from grade 7 to 12, which is crazy to me. Could you imagine though?
Whoa. Oh, we live in a whole different world.
A
So
whole different world. But yeah, so sorry about that. I just had to share that because it was a fun fact that I only found out since I've moved interprovincially. It's been really, really fun. But honestly, yeah, no, I agree with your perspective 1,000% in as, especially where school kind of usually it's supposed to support you into where you want to go in adulthood. But for me and for yourself, school never really shaped us professionally. I'm going to be honest. Neither of us really knew what we wanted to do in grade 7, especially myself. I actually initially pursued a career that I thought was going to be matched long term from school, actually. So, in sewing class in grade 7 is actually when I realized I had a love for fashion. So, I went into the fashion industry as a junior booking director with iModel Management. And then from there, I went more into the cosmetic industry where I did makeup artistry, luxury cosmetic sales, and perfume sales. And from there, I was like, okay, cool. This is what I'm into. This is what I'm going to do forever. But then I reached a point where my personal life started to pivot and I had different priorities on my mindset and in my future. And that's kind of where I fell in love with fitness. So I had no idea that me, the most unfit person in junior high and as a child, would ever become a personal trainer. But that's where passion and creativity and galvanizing yourself for the future really makes it effective where we go.
100%. Like you don't really realize a lot of what you end up doing in the future was really something that affected you when you were younger. Because I know when I started doing this podcast, I was always the type of person that I was a good listener, and I didn't really talk much when I was young, and I was just super quiet, if you remember. And I just always like to listen to people and hear their stories. And I would always write, and I never really thought about that having to do anything with how I would grow into with my future career. Um, but now that I see it, I'm like, holy cow, like this took me so long to really realize what I wanted to do. And now I'm really doing something that I'm kind of good at, I think, and I love doing with all my heart. So I'm just so happy, but it does take a long time. And that's why I want to bring up age is because a lot of people really don't realize it's never too late to find what you want to do. And even though if you're our age, where I'm turning 26 this month, as well as Dre.
I mean, July 26 as well.
Yeah, but for us, even though we've started just recently in the past few years, there's people who are starting out when they're in their 40s and their 50s. And sometimes for us, just seeing younger kids, I know on TikTok making millions of dollars and they're only like 18, 19, that shouldn't really hinder you no matter what age you are. You can do whatever you want, as long as you really understand what you want to do and follow your heart and what you like to do. Right. So I don't know. Do you have
Absolutely.
TikTok?
I don't have TikTok, no. I'm kind of personally anti-TikTok, as we both know. It just isn't a platform I personally resonate with. And I'm not really there for all like the tad bit bites of content. I prefer to make more substantial content, things that hold value. Personally speaking, not devaluing TikTok at all. It's just not my
Same here. Honestly, there's so many platforms out there that we can use to our advantage. And even though me and Dre don't associate with TikTok, we associate more with Instagram or Facebook or other stuff that'll really help bring out our business and help bring out our personal identities. Because even though, let's say, you're at an older age, you don't even know anything about the internet. Like we're lucky that we know anything about the internet. Right? So
Yeah, definitely.
we've grown up in the age where we really know what uh, before the internet happened, and we're growing into the age where we understand what's going to happen next. So I feel like we're super lucky to be a part of this generation. And I'm so glad that I have Dre here talking about it because I feel like you're one of the biggest, I said this before, but biggest inspirations of mine because of how far along you've come from where you were before, right? So let's,
Oh, thank you.
of course. What do you think about age in the industry? Because my mom recently just started going to school. So I thought that was like crazy. And that like
I
gave
think it's
me,
so badass. That's so great of your mom.
right? That was like, oh my gosh, if my mom can do that, like I can do anything, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So I commend your mom for taking that step because as an adult, especially, a lot of people think when we get older, we get to the latter end of our years. The way I like to think of age is literally just a construct. It's a matter of the time that my physical body has been on this world for. And I personally have never let age affect how I'm perceived ever. I started working full time since I was the age of 16. Actually, 14 was my first job, part time with school, and actually left to work full time at the age of 16 through till 25. So about 11, how many years of that? Oh my God. 11 years of just straight work, which is crazy. And especially being a young manager working in the retail industry, I used to have to work with people almost double, triple my age. And I would often get perceived as like the young, naive manager. But the way I approach it is age is not a number. It's simply the amount of time you've been on this earth for, and you can do anything with it. Age is a matter of maturity. It's a matter of outer perspective. It's a matter of understanding how to work with people. And if you can build those skill sets socially and professionally, there's honestly nothing stopping you. I worked as a key holder in like a retail industry for a while. And then as soon as I hit 18, the legal age of becoming a manager, I was approved to be an assistant manager right away. I was managing a $3 million, multi-million dollar store in Balzac in Cross Iron Mills at the age of 18. It was pretty crazy. And then from there, like I transitioned more into upper management. I actually worked into becoming store manager, general manager. And then from there, I continued growing and I actually created a position for myself at the age of 19 with a cosmetic company. I worked with the Fairmont Banff Springs and Chateau Lake Louise, where we opened 2 stores. I managed both of them. Plus, I also traveled all over Alberta and BC doing learning and development events. And that was by the age of 19 max. So I was flying all over Canada and I was also flying all over the States as well for conferences and everything like that at the age of 18, 19. So that is just a staple of proving that you can do anything at any age. I speak to my youth because of that's my reference point, but the older we get, the same rules still apply. It is never too late or too soon to do anything, no matter what you do. If you want to do that 4-year course and you don't do it, 4 years is still going to go by regardless. So you might as well put the energy in, really focus where you want to go. As I always say, where your energy goes, your focus flows. So just get a goal, make a plan, you're good to go, baby.
I love that. I want to ask you because you've done so many incredible things, because I've never really managed my own store. But how did you get into that? Like, oh my gosh, it's definitely skill for sure. But understanding who you are and knowing where you want to go, that's a completely different thing because sometimes, me personally, I didn't really discover myself until I would say like 2 years ago, if that's fair. But how did you do that? How did you allow yourself to really exceed in all these goals that you put forward?
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I wouldn't say I succeed at all my goals for sure. As any human, I have hiccups here and there, but thank you. I would say the biggest thing is understanding that our personal relationships with ourselves interpersonally in an internal and an external environment, those are things that we can cultivate and create from a very, very young age of 14. I remember looking at my external environment and thinking, this isn't what I want. This isn't where I want to be. This is not where I see myself growing and cultivating my future. So from that alone, I was able to galvanize myself and create like a sense of urgency to create a call to action. So being quite young, for me personally, it was to cultivate a life that I was not only going to be happy with, but content and being able to celebrate. That's where a lot of my own personal drive comes from, is self-satisfaction. To be honest, it's quite narcissistic. It's quite greedy, but it's true, because if you can't do it for yourself, who's going to do it? Like literally nobody. So holding yourself accountable, celebrating your small wins, and also acknowledging your failures, because fail is not fail, it's first attempt in learning. Super simple. You got to take what you can, and it's a really great way to kind of keep motivation. For myself, motivation is a very obscure concept because when you think of motivation, generally everyone thinks of like the classic, like just do it, like 12 out of 10 motivation, good vibes only, like all of that. And that's great, like totally there for that. But the way I look at motivation is finding motivation in everything, whether it's a small interaction in a retail setting, helping a client find exactly what they needed, or bonding with your coworkers and establishing that sense of camaraderie, or simply leading your team by example. There's a lot of different ways to pull and cultivate motivation. And that's personally how I manage my own.
I see you doing that a lot, especially with what you're doing right now. When I always open up your stories, you're like, "Oh, let's go! You could do this. You got this." It's amazing. All
Thank
that
you.
energy and all that empowerment that you bring forth. Holy cow! It's really hard, especially I would say internally, because sometimes the careers that we have don't always bring us joy and encouragement in ourselves. So the fact that you kind of push all of that stuff away just for a little bit and you allow yourself to be more positive, bring those good vibes only, that's insane. And that's why you're here today, like where you are right now. That's something that you've brought from when you were younger, because I know you were 100% like that when we were in junior high.
Yeah,
You
I was
were
always a
always
fireball. Like I've always been so crazy.
you were always like my cheerleader, you know. You always brought that out of me and you always made me feel confident in myself. I know you 100% made me go buy like red jeans and those black and white striped prison pants. I remember
Yeah.
those ones. And oh my gosh, I am just so proud of you. I I'm speechless of how far you've come, honestly. You've done so great.
Thank you. That really means a lot, honestly. Yeah. Like for myself, growing up and creating a life that I was very proud of, and not only just proud of, that I could be content in. That was a huge thing for me. Not necessarily just thinking like, okay, I need to do the best things for myself here and there, but to be able to lie my head down every night and be content with where I am and where I'm going, that's the biggest thing for me. And so I really appreciate hearing your opinion from an external perspective. And you're literally one of my oldest friends ever, which is crazy. And we met each other at such like a pivotal time in our lives. We met each other when like I was the yin, you were the yang, I was the loud, you were the quiet, and we really supported and nurtured each other through those periods of development. And that's honestly something I hold really close to my heart, is interpersonal relationships. And interpersonal relationships, from friendships, romantic, platonic, whatever type of relationship it is, you can pull from those things. And that's why pulling it into the workplace is a huge thing. Work isn't necessarily just the job you're doing, but it's the environment you create, it's the product you're selling, and it's the end goal of your mission. For me, I always say, don't ever get attached to a position or a place, always get attached to the mission. So for me, working in retail, my mission was to create the best customer experience. If I go in a retail store, I was a total D-bag because I expect the most. I walk in and I'm like, no one's greeting me in less than 10 seconds. Da 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 da. Their back stock isn't stocked, X, Y, and Z. So like, it's a matter of cultivating those things and providing them, because then that's going to give you more just attachment to what you're doing.
100%. And one thing I realized, because I also started working when I was super young, my first job was Cineplex. I always felt like, holy cow, the relationships that you build over time with every career that you have, that really goes a long way with who you become as a person, how you end up taking those skill sets that you learn from other people and using it towards your future self, and how you decide to really express yourself with your future careers and what you like to do. Because I know when I would work with all these new people, and I would take everything that they had and just, you know, mold that into me and just put my little tinkle in it and uh, that's how I became how I am today. You know, we learn from so many people around us. And as an example, like Dre, he made me feel super confident when I was younger, and that allowed me to really express myself. And that's why I would always wear like the most odd things to school. It was insane. But, you know, the person who really allowed me to be like that and allowed me to express myself was definitely Dre. And we can take a look at that and see all these different types of people that affected us in our lives, whether big or small. You know, take what you can, because everyone has something that you can learn from. You know, that's something that I've always allowed myself to really indulge in, because everyone else or other people's skill sets are something that I really want to consume myself in. There's so much to learn, so much to do. There are careers like left, right, and center that you can take a hold of. For me, I've been working in mobility for about 8 years now. And honestly, that's been something that I thought that I was going to take long term, you know, work in head office, have a 9 to 5 job. But I kept applying to those things within the company, and I never once got a yes. I was rejected all the time. And that's something that I always thought that, oh my gosh, I'm probably just not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was just always taking that out on myself. But the thing is I'm also going up against 20 million other people who have those skill sets that I don't have. But taking a look back, those jobs that I applied for, those positions that I dreamt about having, it's kind of like a lucky charm of mine that I didn't really get them, because now I'm like super happy that I don't have to sit at a desk and work 9 to 5. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I feel like when we graduate, that's a lot of the time people just say, I want like a 9 to 5 job and just work at a desk. And that's what I was really working for my whole life, is to get that. And until recently, I'm like, okay, these signs, all these rejections that I'm getting, oh my gosh, I'm lucky to really understand myself more, understand why I got rejected. You know, failure is a success. You know, everything that you do on a regular day, take that into consideration. You know, you have to give yourself more credit, I feel. You know, I don't know. I think when you get rejected constantly, it really brings you down as a human being. But that should be something that really brings you up, and taking that as a learning lesson to just figure out more about yourself, learn more about yourself, learn more about what you like to do. Because with Dre, coming from being like super skinny and super thin, when I was in school, I was the complete opposite. And growing up, you saw that as an advantage for yourself to become more happy and to become healthier, and you use that to your advantage. And look at you now.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I can totally understand everything that you said, and all that's valid as well. I'd say the biggest thing professionally, when we don't ideally go where we think we want to go, we definitely do take that personally, because it may be a professional setting, but at the end of the day, you are a person in a professional setting. So it really just depends how we manage our internal environments, and especially when our external environments give us a no. I always like to say no just means next opportunity. All right, going on to the next one. So that's super simple. Speaking to personality types, I don't know if you've ever done like the 16 personality types or like the formal personality types quizzes before. Have you ever done them?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I am an ENJF personality type, which means I'm an emotional, like based person. So I make a lot of my decisions emotionally. And one of my cons of my personality type, a general con, is I listen to feedback and also like what is it called? Resistance to feedback and also resistance to rejection. So that is a huge thing I personally have dealt with as well too. I would say the biggest thing to remember when our external environments are not going the way we want to, or if it's things beyond our control, like a lockdown or something crazy, it's the gravity of the situation. Gravity is this invisible force that we can never change. We have to accept it for what it is. And the only thing we have control of is how we react and respond. So that's managing your internal environment. So that's something that I really want everyone to take into their professional practice, is remembering to manage your internal, managing your internal to work with your external environments, because our thoughts drive our actions and our actions drive our results, and our results get us where we want to go. So that being said, take it personal, but don't take it personally. Personally? I don't speak English. I went to Fox.
So the thing is, we're all like human, right? And that's one thing that not a lot of us understand is, no matter who you're meeting, let's say the interviewer, they're also just a human being, and they're just trying to do their job, just asking you questions. And when you go into that space where you're doing the interview, you just feel so anxious, so nervous, because you don't know if what you're doing is right or wrong. But the thing is if they're really looking at you, how you express yourself and how you approach things. The thing is when you're yourself, it's the easiest. But I know, and it's so hard to say that, because when we first meet somebody and it's a formal interview, it's so hard to be ourselves, because we're constantly trying to be somebody that they want. And when you do that, a lot of the time, it's a negative outcome, and we'll definitely take that in a negative, or it impacts us in a negative way. I know I would always like cry and bawl whenever I didn't get what I wanted. But that's just life. That's human life. And understanding that, that person or that company that you're wanting to go into already act as if you're hired, act as if they're your friend,
Yep.
act as if you're already coworkers. Because when you do that, it's so much easier to really be yourself and express yourself in a way that not only that you want, but that's what the company would really want, right? They want ambitious employees. They want outgoing people, but it's really hard to see that when we're really hiding ourselves away. And we don't really realize that until we finish the interview and we're like, oh my gosh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that. But we can't always just wish for things. We have to really think about what we did and take it on to the next. Right.
Exactly, yeah, I agree with that as well, especially your point of interviews themselves. I always love doing interviews. I don't know why. I just love talking and I love sharing like thoughts and I love to share perspective. So interviews for me have always been like my strong suit. Having an like extroverted personality but an introverted mind, I can turn it on in a second. The same as you could when you worked at Cineplex. The customer comes up and you're like, okay, what do you want? Like you have to turn it on. For me, for a while, I honestly turned it on forever. I just left it on. And it's just a way of living your life authentically and truly to yourself. When you're interviewing with a person, just remember, as Inaz said, they're literally just a person. They may have a title, they may have a judgment, or they may have a perspective that they're trying to get across. But at the end of the day, they put their pants on one leg at a time, like everybody else. Like it's a really straightforward thing. It's a cliche for a reason. But interviews are really great because you're just going to talk. You're just going to share your thoughts or perspective. And the best thing you can do is prepare yourself, not only interpersonally, but by reviewing career pages as well. Like with the company, you can really review the job listing and find the personal attributes you have. So with me in retail management, well, something I would always speak to is my personality type. I'm a natural leader. I love to support a community. I thrive by nurturing and developing people. And that's something I know I have in me no matter where I go. So every interview, that would be something I speak to. Those are my strong suits. It's really awesome because you want to do two things when you're in a professional environment. You want to do a comparison and a contrast. So for example, what I mean is Hey, my name is Dre. I think I'm applying for the position of podcast with Inaz. I think I'm a really great one because, in comparison to everyone else, we have a really great friendship that dates back. And a contrast is I know Inaz like the back of my hand. So it's a really great way to establish those 2 points. And that's something I would say for interviews, just compare and contrast from yourself to the other candidates, and then really create some value for yourself as well too with your own attributes. Don't think like, oh, they're looking for someone outgoing, I need to be outgoing. If you're a little bit more timid, that's fine. If you can turn it on, even better. But approaching it authentically and truly to yourself will allow you to not only flourish truly to who you are, but it'll give you long-term sustainability in that position as well. Because if you're putting a face on and it's not your face for the interview, you're going to have to maintain that for the tenure of your career. And that's not sustainable at all.
100%. You can take that into anything, honestly. And that's a really good example that Dre used about the podcast. Is I got that a lot, especially with a lot of participants that want to be a part of the podcast, noticing this as the one person, because I've never been a hiring manager before. So this is my first time actually bringing people on and really doing this on my own. But the thing is me personally, I'm not looking for a certain type of person. Well, it really depends, right? But I'm looking for someone who's really going to just have a conversation with me. That's really the simplest thing of it all. And when you look at it, is when you are my friend, it should definitely be super easy to just come on here and just talk to me as if it's a normal conversation. And that's one thing that I always say is when we come and sit down together, it's just like how we're just relaxing and chilling together, and we're just talking about our lives and what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. That's really what I want out of this podcast, these conversations, to be relaxed. So when you take that into consideration for the future or a career that you want to be a part of, just think of it as a relaxed place that you get to be at. And yeah, as Dre said, they put one leg in at a time whenever they wear pants. And hey, who knows? They probably spilt coffee on themselves that morning. Like, everyone has mistakes, everyone does things. And when you take into consideration that people make mistakes and not just you, that's really helpful, especially when you're meeting, like, I'm going to just say, like, a CEO of something. That person is not perfect. And it's so much easier realizing that when we're all humans and we all make mistakes, everything in life just kind of becomes a little smoother when you get to talk to people and when you introduce yourself as a human being. Because let's say even if you did spill coffee on your shirt, you have no idea what happened to that other person in the morning. And even though they're coming up to you and be like, oh, hello, how are you? And all that good stuff, you have no idea how their morning went. And all you're thinking about is, oh my gosh, I spilled coffee on my shirt, all this type of stuff just going on in your head. That's where you bring that anxiety in, and it kind of distracts you from the real picture. Just be yourself, allow yourself to have that open communication with people, because being comfortable with who you are as a person, that's so much more important than acting out as somebody that you're not, in any type of situation. Because as Jay said, if you're going to be someone that you're not, you're going to be completely living that life for the rest of your career. And if you do decide to change that out, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, who is this person that I am? It's so hard to understand who you are and to get to know yourself. It's really easier said than done, but it's all about realizing that we're all the same. We're all like kin, if you want to say it that way. And we all came from the same place. We were all little molecules of atom. And if we talk about it that way, we're literally all from the same place, CEO or not. If you're
Yeah.
a janitor, you could be related to that CEO. Who knows?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well too. The biggest thing is remembering like Sonder, the philosophical term is the sudden realization that every single person around you, whether you know them or not, whether it's a parent or not, so that they have a life that's equally or if not more complex than your own. So the humility to humanity is something a lot of people forget in the workplace because you think, okay, I need to be on my A game, I need to hustle. That really ties into the concept of modern day slavery as well. So understanding how to find value in your work, but also personally removing yourself, because the way I've always looked at my workplaces and where I go is I may be doing a job, I may be doing a certain title, I may be doing a certain role, but at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me my way. And because no matter what, like you always have to do things for yourself. So I would say the biggest thing is to really find out who you are as a person, love it no matter what it is, and accept that you're ever changing. So don't define yourself like, okay, I'm the positive outgoing person. Like I oftentimes am positive, I can be outgoing, and allow yourself to have that humility as well too, especially in the professional workplace. But yeah, definitely speaking on modern day slavery, like that's a concept that I've really shifted from. And I feel like Inaz has as well, working in retail. You hear the amount of stories of people doing like, oh, I'm doing 40, 60, 80 hours this week. Like, good job. You fell into like the trap of capitalism and expectation of working for a minimum wage and exhausting yourself. Work is really weird because a lot of people, including myself, in the past have used work as my defining point. I've used that as almost a crutch in terms of my ability and where I'm going and what I really perceive myself as. And when I left a lot of my roles in the past when I was quite young, I felt a void in a sense because I defined myself as that guy, or oh, I'm that guy, or I'm working with this brand. And that's great. That's awesome to find like morale, finding like an emotional attachment to your workplace, but don't let that define what you do, like ever, because it's literally physically impossible to grind for like 80, 100 hours a week because you're neglecting so much other aspects of your life. And that's why cultivating and creating the abundance in your life professionally is really important. That's why when I transitioned from the retail industry world into the fitness world, I literally quit a job where I was making shy of $72,000 a year, full out quit, no notice, no savings, nothing. And I pursued what I genuinely had a passion for. And honestly, I hate to say it because I love money and I love nice things, but I'm a lot happier. Like I'm genuinely happy and fulfilled. And that's something I want to stress to a lot of people. Of course, everyone has their necessities, of course, the financial demands and everything. But if you're not putting yourself in a position where you're really jeopardizing yourself, but you can allow yourself to flourish, do it. Hands down, you will not regret it. Meaning as are tokens, shining lights to all these moths of the true like work of choosing your passion.
I saw this post on Instagram and it said quitting is for winners. And honestly, that's so true if you think about it, because when you know when to stop, that's when you fully understand what you actually like and what you're fully capable of. Because we've been through so many jobs, me and Dre, and I've also come from, I've like done housekeeping, everything, retail, and I just said to myself, this is not me. This is not who I am. I can't just be cleaning after people my whole life, cleaning condoms out of bed sheets. Like, this is insane. Not disrespecting anybody else who does it, but I did that for many months and it was just an experience that really took me back. And I was like, okay, there has to be something out there for me that I can really do for myself, make myself happy. And I went back into working in mobility. And till now, I'm still doing it, but that's always something in the back of my mind where it's like, when do I need to know when to quit? When do I need to know when I need to stop doing this? Because as soon as I understand that I'm working too much, because modern day slavery is 100% real. We don't really understand, or we don't really think about it much when we usually say, yeah, I've worked 50, 60 hours. But when you really think about it, all that time that you're taking to put into that job that really honestly doesn't really care much for you, and you're easily replaceable no matter what, especially during these times, you're constantly being put pressure on and all this type of extra stuff that you really don't care for, and it's affecting your mental health. That's when you really have to step back and understand that, is this what I need to keep doing? And if it is, what's my next step? If it isn't, again, what's my next step? It's always thinking of what you're going to do next. You really have to take into consideration that not all jobs are happy places. You know, if you get a job, it's great, but understand where your limit is. Because I'll kind of give you guys an example. I was having panic attacks and constantly depressed at work. And even though I loved my job, I kept having these every day where they literally would send the ambulance to the store and they would have a bed for me and be like, "Look, let's take you to the hospital." And I'm like, "No, no, I just need to go home. I don't know what's going on with myself." And I took like a month off of work, and I really took that into consideration where I was like, okay, what's going on with me where I'm just constantly stressing out? I'm constantly becoming depressed. You know, I don't want to go back into that cycle of where I was at years ago, and who knows what'll happen to me. So you really have to understand where your limit is. If you're constantly working, you don't have time for yourself. That's where you have to be like, okay, I need to step back, hang out with myself. You don't need to be constantly surrounded by people, you know, taking time off just to be on your own and reevaluating your life, your situation, and your work job or your workplace. That's the number one thing that not a lot of people realize. And they just think, you know, I have to have a 9 to 5 job. I have to work 50, 60 hours a week, even to make a living. But you have to understand where there's a limit to things. Work that 40 hours. You can still make the amount of money that you need and still spend time with yourself. And that's honestly where like saving money and all that type of stuff comes in. But yeah, there's so much that can come to affecting your mental health when it comes to constantly overworking yourself. Because I've overworked myself years. I'm like a complete workaholic. So coming from me, I think, and Dre, honestly, he's worked so much. You guys need to understand that there's a limit to things. There's a process to understand what you like to get out of life. And I'm just glad that I honestly took that opportunity to just kind of say, I'm going to stop and I'm going to do what's best for myself, even though I'm going to be missing a week off work. You know, there's benefits and stuff that you can apply for that'll help you, but stop thinking about the money, because money doesn't, it'll bring happiness. Of course, happiness is just a fleeting feeling, but at the same time, it's not going to last. And what's going to last is your mental health, and your mental health is what really kills you. So yeah, going on a rant, just understand where you're going with life. That's it's easier said than done, but understand your limits for sure.
Definitely, I agree with all of that 1,000%. And I appreciate you sharing that with me, Ines. It definitely is like a huge point of vulnerability, and I validate that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I definitely wanted to touch on what you said in terms of time versus like profit versus, like reward versus like whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like effort versus reward. That's what I was trying to say. But the biggest thing to remember when it comes to time, especially when you're doing something hourly or on salary based, time is the most unrenewable resource in the world. It is something that is consistently eating away at itself. It is not guaranteed in the future as well. So using a realization of scarcity of time, it is the most valuable resource you can do. Sitting down, spending this time with Naz, I see it so much intense value in this that I'm happy to do this versus a job where you're only hustling to get a few bucks an hour when the boss is making triple, double, quadruple that amount. Not Elon Musk. What's the guy who owns Amazon?
Oh,
Jeff Bezos. Anyways, that was a
like
joke.
Bill Gates.
Oh yeah, Bill Gates, Microsoft. But anyways, you know what I mean? Like sacrificing your personal values for things, especially a monetary gain. Monetary gain is fleeting. It is not worth it. Honestly, I was in the same position as you, Inaz, where I had to really step back from what I really valued, my career. And I took a good 3 6 months off because I actually went through a full medical leave of absence. I personally had to apply for a leave of absence through my work due to having severe depression and anxiety in the workplace. And it wasn't necessarily linked to my workplace at all. My workplace was amazing. I loved what I did. The people I did were amazing. The company was great. It was simply how I was managing my own interpersonal values in my workplace. I was defining myself by my sales. I was defining myself by my success, by my metrics, my KPIs in the retail world. And it kind of got toxic. It got to a point where if I didn't clear the store goal a day, I would personally take that on to me because I was the sole provider for that store. Not only one of them, but two of them, which is crazy. And there was a point where I actually cultivated a team in health and myself, and I had to take a leave of absence. And I got a lot of backlash, like a lot from employees that I knew for years before that, as friends that I hired and built their careers from the ground up, that were resistant to me taking that step back for my mental health. And I don't regret doing that at all. It is so important to maintain a strong interpersonal value in a workplace because work is ever changing, it's evolving, and the best thing you can do is hold yourself accountable. That's personally why I chose fitness as well, is because fitness is a hobby, it's an interest of mine, but it's also a lifestyle. I personally love fitness because it equipped me with accountability, perseverance, and dedication. Those are three things that we constantly have to work on, and allowing myself to not only cultivate that in my workplace, but in my own personal practice is how I personally am finding sustainability. The same thing for Inaz with Project Unoya. She found value in the word Unoya for so many years. She applied it to her project, literally Project Unoya. So it's really awesome to know that when you cultivate something from value interpersonally and where you find a lot of like contentment from, it's going to repay you back tenfold. And that's why like sustainability in the workplace is so important. And I really don't believe the concept of modern day slavery is like a concept of boomers. No offense to boomers at all. Love the boomers. But that's like such a hustle post World War like mindset of like, you need to hustle, you need to provide, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And that's not where we are in this world. We're in a place in this world where we can actually pursue things we love, like social media marketing. That was never a thing when we were kids. Podcast creator wasn't a thing. Like all of these different, really unique positions were cultivated based on people's wants and desires. And that is pure examples of pursuing passion over profit.
100%. Sometimes you have to really create that opportunity for yourself, because sometimes there is no opportunity created. As Jay said, there was no podcast host or marketing back then. Let's say in 2005, we didn't really understand that concept. I think we just started getting into YouTube. That's when YouTube started getting popular, and everyone just started wanting to become YouTubers and do all that type of stuff. And you know, that's an opportunity that people have created for themselves, is YouTube as an example. And when you don't find that in your daily life or in the daily world, that's when you have to kind of step up and take charge. You have to understand where you're really coming from, because if you don't know what you really like to do, there's obviously so much opportunity out there that you can really find discovery in and discover more about yourself. So when we take a look at that, it's harder said than done, but you know, what more can we do than really take in every opportunity, every inch of little thing that gives us that happiness inside of us? Because modern day slavery is insane. It happens so much, and I see so many people really depressed and not themselves at all. And it happens in other countries where it really leads to suicide. And that's when, right now, I think during like this year and the past year, mental health has really become a huge thing in the workplace. And if you're lucky, you're going to have a workplace that's going to really support support you in taking that leave of absence that Dre and I did to really work on ourselves and become better and understand what we need and what our limits are, and just find happiness within ourselves. Because once you really take that job into you as you, who you are as a human being, that's going to really consume you like completely. If I was Thanos and I like snap my finger, that's literally your job. Like it consumes you completely. And it was honestly like years going on and passed by that I didn't even realize that. I would always work, 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 and I never understood what modern day slavery even was. I didn't really even take that into consideration because I was like, I'm a workaholic. I can do whatever I want. I'm getting paid. I'm getting that moolah, you know. And the thing is, all that money I was getting, I just spent on stuff that I didn't really need. And all that stuff, yeah, exactly. And if it costs you your happiness, then you can't afford it. That's the number one thing. And I didn't take that into consideration. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be happy if I buy this in like 2 seconds. And then I get bored of it in like a day. But the thing is that job that you have that gave you what you have is something that can come later on in life as well. There's so many jobs that you can take on that it'll pay you to buy that certain happiness that you want. But some things that we don't really consider is what we want out of life, what we want out of that job. It's not what that job is going to bring us for materialistic things. You know, what we want out of that job is so important on our daily lives that we don't want it to really affect our mental health to the point where we have to, you know, commit suicide. That's like the number one thing I know. Like in Japan, holy cow,
Yeah,
it's insane.
crazy.
It's
Like
crazy.
especially culture, like in Japan culture, like Japanese culture, Japan culture. Wow, so uncultured. Japanese culture. So I apologize. Like it is so commonly ingrained, especially professionally and everything as well. It is so common for people to commit suicide based on their abundance of their attachment to work. And I'm not saying like specifically Japan has an issue or anything, but I'm just saying in general that emotional non-logic based attachment to your role is not healthy. I would say a lot of the stress why people get attached to roles and especially higher paying gigs and corporate jobs is they have a financial commitment to those roles. A lot of times people live beyond their needs, and I'm one of those people, to be honest. I grew up not in the most privileged family. I grew up from a first generation immigrant family, and I also grew up biracial, so I'm half Native and half Chinese. I grew up with a single mom, which was crazy. And I remember working at Shoppers Drug Mart at the age of 15, and I saved up two full paychecks, not like partial, two full paychecks. And I went and bought my Louis Vuitton Speedy bag, which I still have to this day. But like, to this day, I don't even use it. And it was like, for me, it was more of like something I wanted materialistic, and I got it. Great. Here I am 11 years later. It's still whatever, it's a bag. But that's where financial freedom comes into the topic, our conversation today, because financial freedom is something I personally am still learning, like to this day. It's never a destination, it's a journey, it's a process. And I would say the biggest way to hold yourself accountable and detach yourself emotionally from your job is managing your finances. I know it sounds so stupid, like do a budget and like keep track of your spending. Honestly, ask my boyfriend this. I was the most resistant. I'm not even kidding. Me and my partner combined finances when we got more committed, and we've been together for so many years now. It's crazy. We got engaged last year. And about 2 or 3 years ago, we combined income. And so from there, we actually started doing full budgets. And when I say full budgets, I mean like categorize, subcategorize, split transactions up. I have over 3 years of data where I can see exactly how much money I spent coffee on every month, how many times I took transit, how many times I went to the gym and paid for that. There's so many different metrics that I did not have before. And it really empowered me with financial freedom. Financial freedom doesn't mean having enough money to do everything you want to do. It's having that peace of mind to go to the store, treat yourself to that thing and not feel that guilt being like, oh my God, I just spent $50 and yada, yada, yada. Like accepting that finances are variable, they're constantly going to change. And financial freedom is so important. It empowers you. It gives you metrics that are actionable. So you can really create actions from these. Plus it's going to hold you more than accountable. At the end of the day, if your account's empty, who has the card? I feel attacked.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I 100% agree. I was always like the type of person that never saved a dime, and I would just spend, spend, spend. And I would spend it on like big luxurious things, not like bags or anything. I never really bought myself anything designer. Honestly, I pat myself on the back for that. Um, but I would spend it on cars, like big things, like, and then I would like screw myself over, big time. I think when I first started getting a car, since the first time, I've had a new car every year. And
what? I
I
didn't know I was talking a bit fast and furious here. Shit.
I know exactly. And that was the type of thing that like cost me my happiness. I would spend so much money. I think right now I'll kind of let you guys in on my car at the moment. My car right now, it costs $800 a month, but it's because I know your face. It's because I made that decision to treat myself, and I've never spent my money on anything ever. So I was like, you know what? This is the only thing I'm going to be spending money on constantly. But the thing I realized is I have the weirdest things at home that really don't make sense. Like I have an iPad that I just use as a clock. You know,
What?
like I'm
That was
literally, I don't understand myself sometimes, but that's like the type of thing that you really have to understand is these types of things isn't what's going to bring you happiness or anything financial freedom whatsoever. It's understanding what you're going to do with your money in the long term is what matters. These little mistakes that I made over the years, like that iPad that I literally use as a clock only, is a mistake that I did. But you know what? That's something that I've learned to never do again. And I just started spending my money on more important things like feeding myself and putting shelter over my head and eating stuff. And the thing is when we don't really understand all that work that we put in every day, because we get paid bi-weekly. I don't know about you, Dre,
Same.
but sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes people get paid like weekly or once a month, but me, I got paid bi-weekly. And sometimes you don't really see the money happening every time you go into work, and you only see it in that lump sum. And that's where it's hard to really consider saving. And when you save, let's say even $50, that amounts to so much over the years. But let's say you want to put that $50 towards like an Uber Eats delivery, you could do that every time and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so broke at the end. But then when you want to save that $50, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so broke, but you still have money,
I'm just so attached right now. No,
Literally,
I
I'm
absolutely
like
agree with that.
throwing so much shade at myself right now.
I know, I can feel it. I feel it too, sis. It's getting spicy in here. But honestly, same. Like, I actually just ordered Uber Eats like the other day. It's the first time since December. I used to order it almost every other night with my boyfriend because, like, I don't cook a lot. A
Mhm.
lot. And so, like, for me, it's really easy. But then when I realized, like, okay, I can buy dinner for two, $50. That's I get paid personally like $24 an hour. So that's like 2 hours of work. So would I work 2 hours for this like crappy burrito bowl? No, I wouldn't. And that's like the big thing is remembering when we are buying is the value of time versus profit. Like you may be working for an hour, you may be doing 40 hours at the end of the week, but if you're buying something that's worth 20 hours of your work, that's half a week's work. Like that's crazy. And so understanding the value of financial freedom and understanding how to cultivate that and really manage it is what's going to give you the most power, like for sure, for sure. And yeah, I agree with you. I've bought some pretty dumb things in my life. The amount of handbags I've bought myself in as is enough for both of us combined. Like I'm so regretful of so many things that I've bought, and I wish I could just like return them. But for me, they hold a lot of value. Like they hold a lot of emotional value for me, especially like my smaller goods and my designer bags, because I remember growing up looking at these things and being like, fuck, I really want that. And like I remember like growing up, oh my God, so embarrassing. I used to like go to like Holt Renfrew and like try things on, go make friends with the sales associates in all these stores. And it came to a point where they knew my name at the Chanel counter, at the Guerlain counter, at all these counters, yet I never bought a thing. I like would buy one or two things every couple of months because I have to save up. But I am very grateful for those relationships, those professional relationships. Because I was actually able to continue networking with those people in the future when I got into that industry. So no matter what you're doing, the financial freedom doesn't restrict you from what you want. It's a matter of finding value and finding ways to incorporate that value into your purchasing. So that's why when I buy a coffee, I don't think like I'm buying a $5 coffee. I think like, okay, I'm buying energy to get X, Y, and Z done. That's why I find value in coffee. I know coffee is a weird example, but that's probably one of my biggest expenses.
Great example. Like I don't drink coffee personally, but let's say I'll go to Starbucks and I'll get like a hot chocolate or whatever. That's like one thing that I would constantly spend money on. And I was like, holy cow, I don't even care what I'm spending money on regarding food. But then when it comes to like more important things like bills, I'll be like, do I really want to put like anything towards that? And I'll spend like $100 on like jeans. Like there's there's priorities that you have to set in place for yourself. And Dre's right. Like if you don't want to take time and working that like 2 hours to feed yourself this like one meal, then don't do it. You know, there's so many things like once you do get enough money over the long run and when you're comfortable enough, you can buy whatever you want. If that dream car that you want, you can have it. That new bag that you want, you can have anything that you want. But during the times that you truly need that support, especially for yourself, that's when you really have to take into consideration the amount of hours that you're putting in. And that's when we kind of go back to modern day slaveries. We're constantly consuming ourselves with things that we don't need and we don't think about it. And we put ourselves in a rut where we're constantly being like, oh, I'm broke. I don't know I don't know what to do with myself anymore. Like, I don't know the amount of times I've cried over money, Dre, is insane. Like, sometimes I'd be like, oh my gosh, like, there's nothing more to life. Like, I can't even afford to pay my phone bill. But at the same time, that phone bill that I needed to pay, I used on something else, you know? So there's things that you really have to take into consideration because you know you can pay your bills, you can do whatever you want, except don't constantly place yourself in those difficult situations because we do it to ourselves.
Yep.
100%. We love putting ourselves in difficult situations. We love making ourselves feel bad and we love doing shitty things to ourselves. And we don't really realize it until it happens. And we're like, oh my gosh, I'm like crying and I don't know what to do with my life anymore. But when you really consider that you actually can, and you have the money that you need and you have whatever it takes to really accomplish what you need to accomplish, except don't put yourself in that rut where you think that you're not going to, because once you think that you're not going to, you're not going to, you know, and you're going to put that money that you've worked these 5 hours for into something that you don't need. So don't turn yourself into a slave. be free, you know. It's I say this all the time, it's easier said than done, but it's really a mind thing. Once you I always like try to manipulate myself into thinking that it's not good enough for me. Like I stopped getting Starbucks. I never get Starbucks again because honestly, Starbucks,
Starbucks is crap.
yeah, and it's mostly popular for its coffee, and I don't drink coffee, so I'm like, fuck it, like. What's the point of this? And I stopped eating out constantly because I'm like, honestly, I love my homemade sandwiches. Like I don't know how to cook at all. So whenever I would make lunch for myself for work, I would have like a peanut butter sandwich and apples and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, it's I'm so excited to eat my homemade lunch." And I would like manipulate my mind into thinking that the food court was disgusting and nasty and Starbucks was disgusting and nasty. And that allowed me to kind of stop buying from them. So it's really what you put your mind to thinking, right? It's all
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
mind game at the end.
Exactly. You have to really understand the value of your purchases as well too. Oftentimes people are emotionally biased when they're making spending decisions. The biggest thing is to remove yourself from that narrative and try to view it from an external perspective and understand the long-term repercussions of it as well. I used to have like the worst spending habits ever. Like I'm not even kidding. My boyfriend and I look back at the budget and he's like, how the F did you get your hair cut every single week? Why did you go to the spa 4 times this week? Why did you get a facial at work? Da, 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 da. All this like dumb things I didn't need because I was trying to live beyond my means.
Mhm.
I remember it's actually really funny. We actually just had this conversation yesterday. My partner's name is Graham, for those who don't know, my little G bear. I love him. We used to do what was called allowances. So when we first combined our income, my only rule of combining income was I can get my haircuts every week and I get my allowance. Those were the only things I cared about. And that showed you where my priorities were lying then and there. And we used to get $100 every week I would call it free money, which just shows you the perspective I was in. But last night we were just talking because I remember he used to save up his allowance and then he would have like 400 or 500, 600 bucks saved up. And I'd be like, what the F? Like so envious and so mad. And I used to be like, you're cheating. And like not like cheating on me, but like cheating on the budget. Because in my head, I was like, free money, do what you want. And then in his head, he understood the value of that money and saved it and really cultivated it for the future. And it took me a long time to get there and understand that, but I really appreciate having feedback. The biggest thing when you're working with financial freedom and avoiding modern day slavery and understanding how to manage your workplace as well is keeping track of your budget. I use an app called YNAB, YNAB. You Need a Budget is what it's called. Like, I'm not even kidding. Anyone wants to join, let me know. I get a month for free if I refer you. But it's a really great way to hold yourself accountable, as I mentioned before. And as I said before, where your energy goes, your focus flow, where your energy goes, your focus flows. So when you focus your energy on holding yourself accountable and knowing how to reprimand those actions from the past, not feeling guilty, but just moving with them and going with them, it's going to give you a lot more power and strength for it.
100%. And I'm so glad we kind of talked about that because, like, when we're younger, we don't understand what money is at all. And we kind of just sometimes we don't want to work at all. We just want to, it was easier to live off our parents and use their money because we thought money just grew on trees. Like, I'll kind of give you an example. I don't know if you remember IMVU when we were young. I would take my mom's card and just buy whatever I wanted. I would just spend 20, 30 bucks and she'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? It's just like, money doesn't grow on trees. And when back then, my mom would be cleaning bars and doing a lot of things that's like heavy work. So I didn't really understand that money was hard to achieve. I thought that we just got money and it just came out of nowhere. But she would be constantly working. She would go to work at like 12 in the morning and then she wouldn't come back till 6 in the morning. And sometimes we would go and help her. And I would just be like, oh, I don't want to do this. I would just like be lazy and I would just like vacuum shattered floors and blah, 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 because I was at a bar. And I think I was like less than 10 years old at that time. So I didn't know anything. And Dre came from a non-wealthy family, as did I. Like, I grew up with a single mother as well. So it was hard to understand that money just kind of came from working so much, because my mom was working so much that she just didn't really care about how much she would have to spend on us. She was very giving, and she would allow us to be like, "Oh, do you want this? Do you want that?" And I'd be like, "Yes, yes, 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 yes" to everything. And so I would just take money from her, and I would be like, money just came out of nowhere. And um, that really played a role in how I kind of grew up personally, because I understood that, holy cow, work is tremendous no matter what you're doing, because an immigrant mom is working constantly by herself in the middle of nowhere at night at a random bar, and who knows what could happen. There's like drunk people everywhere, and she's obviously wearing a headscarf, a hijab, and people are kind of racist, so anything could happen to her. So I didn't really see the value in money at that time. I was like, she's just doing something, and I don't know, she gets paid whatever. Like, I'm just gonna take $20. Like, that's not a big deal. But being who I am right now, $20 is a lot. Like, I'm not gonna spend $20 on something I don't need. And if I have to, then I have to. But that's what it all really comes down to, understanding where money really comes from. Because when we were young, we don't understand that. We were just spend, spend, spend. As Dre did with his designer bags, as I did with a bunch of other useless stuff. I We really didn't care. We didn't understand. But now that we have to live through it, and we have to constantly work hard, and we went through the modern day slavery phase, right? So understanding that now is like a whole new world has opened up. So I'm glad that we're talking about it, because kids these days, in my opinion, they are a whole new different species. What are they called? Gen Z?
Gen Z, and then there's like another one after that. And here we are like aging ourselves like tenfold. In my head, I'm like 13, still going to Fox, and like in Mr. Lindsay Pretorti's class having a crush on him in like grade 7. So like I'm still the same person, Lindsay, if you want to call. I'm just kidding. And also Mr. Sam Groves, our gym teacher, Melissa Yamnick. I love all those people.
That's adorable. Oh my gosh. See, like,
Mr. Pretorti, though. Remember Mr. Pretorti?
yes.
Remember we all found out his name is Lindsay and we're mind blown?
Mr. Forty. I hope they watch this.
Awkward.
That's so funny. I the thing you guys might not know, me and Dre have known each other since elementary, and elementary is like grade 6 to 7. No, what? That's
Oh, grade 7. We met grade 7 actually, so junior high. Technically still, I don't know, elementary school.
So not elementary, sorry. That's until grade 6. So yes, grade 7, and we've had like an amazing friendship ever since. And the thing is we, being completely different people ourselves, we still had the same habits, which is spending and not understanding stuff. Even though completely different personalities, where Dre would just go and shop at designer places, I would use that money towards like food. And I don't know, one time, like, I would order Domino's, and I would order like 2 extra large pizzas for myself, and I would finish that. Like, how insane is that?
I remember I used to order Domino's like when I lived in Banff, and because in Banff the only good takeout is Domino's. And I used to order like medium, like triple meat, double cheese, pan pizza, and I would eat the whole thing to myself. Plus, I'd order my boyfriend one. I'd eat half of his. And I remember before I went plant-based, like at the beginning of this pandemic, I tried to do the same thing. And I remember just eating this pizza, and I just sat there and I was like, this is fucking disgusting. Like, Like, sorry to call out those people who eat whole pizza still, but like, it is such a bad habit because not only like is it bad for you physically, but it's just not good for you at all, spiritually, emotionally, kinetically, whatever. It's just not there for you, sis. It may be great on the taste buds. I will admit that.
Oh my gosh, I know this is kind of off topic, but have you ever had Senior's Pizza?
In Calgary?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had it when I lived in Calgary. Yeah, it's really good. I love how deep dish there is, like the thick crust.
Okay, so being like I'm a huge pizza person, but the first time I ever had Senior's, I had one slice and I woke up in the middle of the night, I think like 3, 4 in the morning, and I puked all over my bed. It was disgusting. I realized after that, I'm like, I cannot continue. Like, this is disgusting, oily. Oh my gosh. Just thinking about it right now gives me shivers. Like, I never want it to happen again. But it's like stuff like that. Like, it's not worth it. The things that you put in your body. Oh my gosh. I know me and my roommates are trying to become vegan. It's hard because I love.
Call me. Got you, sis. Plant-based says here.
I know, I'm sorry, Dre. I love meat so much, so it's so hard right now.
It's okay. It's okay. Off topic, but it's totally okay. Socially, like you're pressured to eat all these things, but like back in like the 70s, 80s, like those are great sources of protein. But now in the day and age we are, there's no excuse to not eat plant-based, like at all. Like you have conscious decision over what you consume. And the way I look at animal like welfare is animals can't consent. They can't say yes, they can't say no, they have no idea what's going on. And who are we to say, you're done just for a bacon sandwich? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying people who eat it is horribly wrong. I'm just saying in the age of 2021, conscious consumption plays into wellness. It plays into the way our external environments are impacted. If you haven't watched Seaspiracy yet, watch it.
Oh, I heard that I'm gonna be extremely sad after I watch it.
You're gonna cry. Like it's a spiritual journey. Because they speak to like bycatch, they speak to like the deforestation of the ocean floor and how much impact it has on the environment. The crazy thing to me is, as humans, 80% of the ocean is still undiscovered, yet like 40% of it is already destroyed. We're destroying it before we can even explore it, which is so crazy. And like the biggest pollution in like the ocean isn't even like straws, which we think. It's literally fishermen's nets. Like, and all of these big companies, like the tuna certification company, all these other big companies are partnered with these giant corporations to defend them. And the whole propaganda of straws polluting turtles, that was created by the seafood industry to cultivate and deter from what the actual problem is. Like, it's crazy. It's literally a conspiracy. It's like the more conscious you have, like the biggest thing is personal training as well too in fitness. 80% of the demographic of client is obese and overweight. Over 80% of Americans are obese, which is crazy. The most common injury is an ACL and MCL injury because of the fact the body cannot withstand the weight load. And that's socially and like it's an economic thing as well too, of like what people are pushed to doing. The national like food guide America, their food guide is literally designed for you to get sick, to pay for these top 7 diseases such as cancer, hypertrophy, diabetes. These are pushed down our throats literally, which is crazy. But anyways, that's a tangent for another podcast.
Everything around us, it's all politics, you guys. Like everything. Even when we go back to talking about careers, even in the workplace, everything is politics. And
so you gotta make friends.
100%, that's one thing I always like take with me is that connections are 100% the most important things that you can get in a workplace environment to really help you overall in the future with career wise or anything that you want to do. Because once you make that connection, you can take it with you long term. No matter who you meet, it could be anyone. Because let's say, for example, I worked at Cineplex and we're all just like little cast members. That's what they called us. And we were just part timers and doing all these little tasks. But let's say one other cast member of mine is just doing part time stuff, doesn't really have anything going for themselves. But 10 years in the future, they've built a huge company for themselves, done stuff for themselves, done so much to improve who they are as a person. You know, you can take that with you and use that connection to help you on in the future. One thing that a lot of people don't understand is that it's not all about using people, if I could say. It's yeah, it's like half half. We're not using people to in a bad way. We're using people in a good way because we also want to be used. Okay, I'm gonna go into a little thing because when we want to be used, we want to be used in a good way. If someone is asking you for referral, that's a really good, like, that's a compliment to yourself because you know that you're referencing someone and being someone that can help them move on and get the career that they want. Um, Even though you're not much and you don't have like stability in your life or anything, but being somebody that can help someone else out, that can come back to you in so many more ways. You know, just being someone for other people can come back to you as someone else can do the same exact thing for you. You know, we're not using people in bad ways. We're using each other to improve ourselves, to help ourselves, and to build ourselves to become more successful individuals, you know? And I think Dre agrees with me on this because I know you've told me before, you've made so many connections when you would just like visit the mall.
Yeah, actually, connection for me is probably my favorite thing. And like the thing is with connection is the way I look at it, it's like a friendship. Like it's just really fun. Like I love meeting people. And the crazy thing is I can retain so much information about people personally. So when I make a connection with a client, a colleague, a superior or a subordinate, whatever, I really value those relationships, whether I get a negative response from it or a positive. I take what I can from those connections and adapt them to our own lives. Speaking to more in depth of internal and external environments, our colleagues, our staffs, our friends, our family, those are all external influences to us. This is what we surround ourselves with. It's where we pull our inspiration from, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And that's why connections are really important because you never want to burn a bridge like ever because you're never going to know when you have to go back down that path again, whether it's to get a reference, to even get your pay stub, like something most minimal. Like you need to respect connection. And that's the biggest thing for me is I'm not gonna lie, I've had some pretty bad experiences in the past where I've just cut it. I have like a really emotional based logic, and when I feel like my emotional boundaries are crossed, I take it extremely personally, and that has bleeded into workplaces in the past. But the thing is, I never let that affect my connections. Although I might have not left a role in the most ideal ways, the people, the memories, the activities I did there, those are the things that I'll hold on to the most in the future. That's why like connection professionally is really great because LinkedIn is a great platform to use because not only does it allow you to celebrate and show a tangible proof of your connection, but it's a great way to keep in contact with people as well. Speaking to a connection I made working in the cosmetic retail industry, I worked with this beautiful district manager. She is the sweetest human I've ever met. And to this day, she's still a contact of mine. I still have her on all my social media. I still have her on LinkedIn. And the great thing is our paths have crossed again now that I'm in a new industry, going from retail and cosmetics where literally I sold $300 face creams to doing fitness. Christelle is doing the same thing. Her name is Christelle, by the way. She now is working in the fitness industry and she's working and managing a huge series of stores here in Quebec. And they do a lot of in-store demonstrations. And she reached out to me because she knows where I am now. So that being said, connections are ever growing, they're ever evolving, they're ever changing, and never destroy them. Speaking to connection as well, me and Naz's connection goes way back. Like we didn't know 4 or 5 months ago that we'd be collaborating on this podcast. And here we are maintaining that connection regardless of distance, social barriers, and economic barriers, whatever's going on, it's still there. That's the biggest thing. Connection it's going to be the strongest force in the world. An example of this is, when you're around someone in a badass mood and they're like grumpy and fuming and you can see the steam coming out of their ears, you feel that immediately. Speaking to the molecule thing, I said earlier, as humans, we are nothing but kinetic energy. We're ever moving energy. Our bodies are everything, but technically speaking, on a micro level, they're nothing at the same time, which is like poof, to get real spiritual with it. But that being said, connections are great because if you find a really great connection and maintain it, it's going to pay back tenfold. If it's genuine, if it's authentic, and you understand the value of that connection, like it's amazing.
100%. It's, you really have to think that after you're done school, like this is kind of like a message for the younger ones who are looking to really find what they want to do after. What you want to do doesn't doesn't matter at all. At that age when you're young, you can do whatever you want because these skill sets, these things that you take with you will go with you in the future. And so when you look at the bigger picture, you have to see it as just fun environment that's going to bring you a whole lot of adventure and a lot of possibilities and a lot of friendships because we're all in this world on earth together, and who knows what else is out there, but for now we're kind of stuck together. So we have to use our resources to the best that we can. And if that means that we have to, befriend that person that's super angry or super distraught, customer service plays a huge role in that because we can allow them to feel happiness even just for a short time. And that angry person or that individual will take you in the back of their head for years on years. And who knows, you might get a call one day to do something amazing. There's so much opportunity in this world, and the way that you treat people is so important. The way that you treat the environment around you is so important. For anybody at whatever age, honestly, at this point, because no matter age that you are, even if you're 80 and you want to start something new, you can do whatever you want. Just find fun in everything. Nothing is supposed to bring you darkness and fear and distraught emotions. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be a happy, outgoing place for you, and that's what you have to build for yourself. It's all in your mind. So if you're gonna consume yourself in all that negative energy is going to really empower you to become more negative. But when you look at the bigger picture, that we're all the same, we're all human beings, and we're all just out here to build ourselves, to become more successful, to do something with our lives. Because, none of us want to be depressed. None of us want to fall back and constantly take a step forward to take 3 steps back. We don't want that. Oh my gosh, I see a tail.
My own dog just came to say hello.
Oh, so cute.
My cat's sleeping right there too.
As I was saying, nothing, as we just saw right here, everything is supposed to be just joyful and easygoing. And if you do that for yourself, you have no idea. Your life will just be surrounded by goodness. And I feel like I say this constantly and constantly and constantly. It's easier said than done, but it's just put your mind to it. It's all about easygoing happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. I kind of used this example to one of my friends, and she's terrified of driving on highways. And I told her, I'm like, I don't think anybody wants to purposely get into a car accident. Everyone wants to get to where they are safely. And if you know what you're doing, if you know that you can drive safely, then you can help yourself. Unless there's 1 in 5 or 10 chances. Actually, that's pretty it's pretty high in getting an accident. I'm gonna just say one in like
In a million.
100 where you'll actually get into a car accident. Um, that's maybe a mistake on your side and the other person, who knows, but nobody actually wants problems for themselves. No one actually wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to feel bad about anything. It's all a mental game that we have to play with ourselves to become more happy, to find success within ourselves, within other people, and build connections, build relationships that are amazing, that are meaningful, that you can bring with you in the future. But yeah, I'm like just so happy that I have Dre here with me today to talk about this, because this was such an important topic for all of us. I think, especially during this time, because not a lot of people know what they want to do. And I feel like a lot of people think that they need to do something to feel valued or accomplished. But as long as you're in it for yourself, that's honestly, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Exactly. You got to do it for you, because at the end of the day, when you're laying your head down in your bed, regardless of if you have a partner or not, you're just by yourself. Like, I hate to say that, but that's where you find like the human connection and everything as well. It's really important to maintain that, because as Ina has said, like you can show that little bit of kindness. For me, kindness and compassion are things that can break barriers through language, culture, anything. Being kind is shooting a smile. It's non-verbal, it's welcoming, it is the nicest thing you can do, and it's honestly so sweet. I have a quote I have lived and breathed by since I was a kid, and it's people may not remember what you said or what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So always try to make people feel great, even if you don't feel awesome. Just checking in, genuinely checking in with people. When I ask someone how they are, I'm like, hey, how are you? And they're like, good. I'm like, no, genuinely, like, how are you? Like, how are you doing? Not you good, you bad, like genuinely what's going on. And it's so funny because like in retail, I had a fun habit. I used to do this to troll, but I also do it still anyways. Whenever people came into the store, I'd be like, oh my God, finally you're here. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, I've been waiting for you like all day. Like people get so confused, but it's just like a little moment of joy. And it really makes me happy. And like I always used to say when people customers were leaving the store, I'd be like, bye, I love you, I'll miss you. And to this day, like I still say I love you to people I don't even fucking know, because I love them for what they offer to me. I may not be romantically in love and in lust with you, but I love you as a person. Like I genuinely love people. That's what makes me so happy.
Love is such a strong word, honestly. At the end of the day, it's all about love. It's all about how you treat people, because 100%, as Dre said, people will take back how you made them feel. And that's like the number one thing. Even if it happened like 10 years ago, they'll still remember you for that exact thing. You know, anything that you say or do can impact someone's life in a bad or in a good way. So,
Yeah.
just take that into consideration, you know, with work, with school, with your daily life. Do anything that is possible to just bring happiness in your life. You know, it is just a fleeting feeling, but the thing is it's an awesome feeling that we all love having. And, you know, smiling uses the least amount of muscles in your face. So I always tell myself that as soon as I wake up, I should put a smile on my face. That allows me to have an improved self sense of my emotional attachment to my surroundings. So as long as I smile, I know I'm going to have a good day. You know, always tell yourself that you're going to have a good day. Give yourself some affirmations, who knows, to make yourself feel good. But at the end of the day, you matter. And if you're not happy, take a step back and understand what you can do for yourself to really push that negative feeling past what you're feeling. Because the thing is there's only one life that you can live, and if you use it to your advantage, you can accomplish so many things. So we don't know if we're gonna die and live again to be somebody that's I don't know, reincarnated to something else. We have no idea what the afterlife is like, if there is one at all. So the thing that we can only really do right now is to take that into consideration and live our life to the fullest. And if we're going to live our life in a negative way, it's going to be downhill from there. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
live a full fantasy always. Like create the environment you want, bullshit until you get where you want to go. Because at the end of the day, your head, your thoughts, your mind, you have full control over that. Like that's why I always say like I'm delusional, is because I'm literally delusional. I refuse to accept where I'm at and I think of where I want to go. And that applies to everything, like everything.
100%. Um, anyways, we're honestly finishing up now. And I just wanted to say thank you so, so, so much for Dre, for being here with me today. You are amazing. You're the light of my life. I literally love you with all my heart.
Oh, thank you, Naz. I love you too. I appreciate you beyond your physical being. I appreciate your mind, your heart, your soul, your compassion, your kindness, but especially your understanding. You're such a really great person. And I hope people realize with Project Unoya, it's not another one of these like bullshit motivational podcasts. Like it's speaking about the nitty gritty, it's normalizing these conversations, and it allows for people to open up. And the biggest thing is to remember the humanity, the human side of humanity, as I've said before.
100%. We're all humans. We're all the same. We're all kin, if we can say, in a non-weird way. But I'm just so grateful to have Dre here by my side to really express that and bring that to life, because there's not enough people in this world that really understand that. And I am just so grateful to be surrounded by such amazing people and such an amazing person right in front of me right here. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ina. Appreciate you so much.
So you guys look forward to the next episode. Dre will 100% be back. I know you guys love him already, as I do. And we're going to be talking about other awesome things. And I really hope that you guys took something out of this conversation today, that you learned lots, because I feel like it's such an important conversation that we had. It's so amazing. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Ina.
So thank you guys. I love you. Have an amazing day.